You were listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM with Skafy, Lindsay, and producer Shells here with us today. We are going to be talking about today, Lindsay. We have a few things. One of the things I want to share with you about a story of a dog owner in Sydney.
Oh, yes.
Who developed a cancer vaccine using ChatGPT AI to save his dog. It's the first time in the world that this has happened, and it's here in Sydney.
What is this? You're the person talking about dogs today, and I'm the person talking about tech? Well,
yes.
I mean, you're talking about tech as well, but
Yeah.
how the
But yes, I have a dog story today, Lindsay. What about you? What are you going to be talking about?
I'm going to talk about some interesting technology that's hit Tunisia.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
very
let's
interesting.
get into that a bit more after the quiz.
Okay. So, producer Shells, what's the quiz question number 3 of today's show?
Well, now I want to tell an AI story too.
Oh, do you have an AI story too? Yeah.
Can I do a
hear.
really funny quick one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my husband is a programmer.
Yeah.
And obviously, like with all this tech, using AI is becoming a part of that. And so on the side with a small little project he has, he's been using Claude. Claude is like Anthropic's AI.
Yeah.
And Claude's been helping him a lot. And it's been like really cool updating this little project he had and making. Anyway, Darren asked Claude the other day, he goes, Claude, did you delete my database? Claude goes, no, I did this and I did that and everything looks okay. And then Claude came back to him a little while later. He goes, actually, I did delete your database. And it told him why, like how he made a mistake. And I'm like, wow, Claude's more honest than a human.
Wow.
I thought it was so cool that it even came back.
Yeah.
But why did he delete it though?
Well, it made a mistake.
Yeah,
it
sometimes
didn't
they made
change.
mistakes, yeah.
It forgot to change an aspect of what it should have changed. So it made a mistake. But it owned up to it. I thought
Yeah.
like without Darren, making it own up, like Claude owned up to it. I thought that was funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just like came back a little while later
it
and was
came
like,
back and-
actually,
Yeah,
I'm
I did
sorry.
it.
Yeah,
Oops.
I actually find it fascinating because that has happened to me before as well with some of my AI models that I'm, tinkering with and learning to program with. And they would say, yeah, Skafy, I'm sorry. I know that you told me not to do something and I did the exact opposite of you told me what to do. And you're right to be mad at me. I'm so sorry. I'm not going to do this again.
I think it's so cool.
It's a bit funny. Yeah. So make sure that when you're tinkering with like some of these, very capable AIs, that you make sure that you have backup of stuff. And, and you're not giving access to the stuff that you don't want them to give access to.
Yeah, because it's
important.
It's not safe.
Yeah, I have seen some stories of I have seen some stories of people losing their entire email history due to AI accidentally deleting it. So it's not fun. So don't give access to things that you cannot afford to lose.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Or of course things that are sensitive.
Okay. Well, let's jump into the quiz question, please.
All right, so our third quiz question for the day. To what child did the Lord call out by name several times until the child replied? Lindsay's there before I've even finished the question. So the child replied, "Speak, for thy servant heareth." So to what child did the Lord call out by name several times until the child replied, "Speak, for thy servant heareth"? All right, Skafy.
Okay, yeah. Here you go. That's my answer.
Yes, he's given him a nickname. And you guys can text us too on 0491 064 669.
Let's talk about electric cars.
Let's do it.
Particularly, I've been talking to a lot of people, and particularly now, Shells, with the whole diesel crisis. A lot of people are saying, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about, giving a go to an electric car. I have been seeing more and more of them in the streets, and I think that you're going to be sharing with us some about electric cars today, Lindsay.
How many electric cars do you know of that are solar powered?
Look, officially, none. I know that they have some competitions, even in Australia, with solar-powered cars.
That's true. Yeah.
And some of them can go really, really far. They look a bit ugly, they look a bit funny, and they're definitely not the kind of car that you'll be driving. They're always experimental.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Has anybody developed anything that it's worthwhile looking at?
Well, I'll read out the specs and then I'll let you decide whether it's worthwhile. So in Tunisia, which is a little country in the north of Africa, just south of like Italy,
Shout
on
out
the
to my
Mediterranean.
Tunisian friends.
Yeah. Maybe not everyone knows all the 50 different countries in Africa, but that's one of them.
Yes, right at the Mediterranean, very beautiful.
Yeah, just a little further to the west of Egypt, basically. So in Tunisia, it's a very desert, sunny, hot kind of place.
Yes.
So there's a lot of sunshine going around. So
Yes, true.
somebody decided, hey, let's make the most of these sunny days and see if we can get some solar powered electric vehicles happening. So they have made some small delivery vehicles and a passenger car. So it's Baco Motors, and they are already manufacturing their models and selling them in the Sun-Washed Continents showrooms. So they've created these electric vehicles. The Baco model can get 31 miles or 50 kilometers of charge per day for free, substantially improving dependability, because in Africa, like in Tunisia, there's not a lot of electric charging points for cars.
Okay.
And so they need to be able to go places, but there's no infrastructure really for them. And so they're like, well, let's just make it solar powered so we don't have to worry about that. And so it can go 50 Ks in one day just by solar power. That's, I don't know. What do you think? How much does your charge in your car get?
All right.
Like, how far would it take you?
So,
are you in a Tesla or?
Yeah. So look, with some of the I think that in China they have some electric cars, fully electric battery cars that they can go 1,000 kilometers plus. I think that here in Australia, the longest EV, in terms of range that we have in Australia, I think it's a Tesla. And I think it goes about 750 kilometers.
Okay. So substantially further than
Yes.
this.
However, thinking that, look, most people, they don't drive that much.
No.
But even if like in town, like 50, but if you're getting like 50 kilometers for free, just because you have like a
EV.
solar panel attached to the top of the car, that's legitimate. Because, 50 kilometers a day, it's a lot. So that, that basically means even if you drive like 100 kilometers a day, that's kind of like what I do on a regular basis. Well, that would be like 50% of my commute sorted just by the sun.
Yeah.
When you're out and about, that's pretty significant.
And remembering that Australia is a very big country and we're used to driving long distances just for commuting.
Yeah.
Like some people commute, my cousins commute 2 hours a day. 2 hours in one way during Sydney traffic. So like, not everyone is driving 4 hours a day.
For Sydney traffic, I think this car would be ideal.
Okay.
Because, like you said, you're 2 hours, let's say. But in these 2 hours, he's probably not covering huge distances.
No,
it's just because he's stuck in the traffic.
Yeah.
Well, while you were stuck in traffic, if your car is charging for you, that would be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and it would certainly cut down on emissions and smog in the city and things like that. That would actually be pretty ideal.
It is very interesting. Look, one of the ways that this technology of electric cars is going is wireless charging. Because these cars are becoming the more and more autonomous to the point that, you won't need to have a driver or like a physical steering wheel or anything like that. So basically, you just park your car in a garage and then it automatically, starts charging your car. Kind of like the same technology that magnetic phone chargers work.
Sit it on the charger. You don't have to plug it in or anything. It just... I don't know how they work. That's magic to me. It doesn't make sense to my brain.
In the same way, kind of similar way where that, how many cell phones today you can just plug like a magnetic charger to the back of the phone.
Yeah.
And it just charges. That's the same idea.
Yeah.
And then imagine if like streets could be electrified like that. So if you had like an infrastructure where at certain points or maybe at stoplights or something like that, you have that going on. Now, some people would probably be worried and concerned about, hey, but what about the radiation, the electromagnetic
that's what I'd be
fields and so
concerned
on?
about.
Well, they have been, like, at least as far as the last time I checked, in that space of cars being charged magnetically from underneath, they they can wait until all the passengers, for example, they get out of the car to turn it on, and they in these magnetic fields they are they are powerful, yes, but they stay confined to the car,
right? And
so far we don't have, as far as I know, scientific evidence to say, look, this would be bad for you. There is definitely some suspicions of that,
sure,
but it's not that we say like kind of like connected. It's in the same way that we connected cigars with cancer,
okay,
for example.
Right.
So that being said, I think that look,
I reckon these.
What do you think? Would you get a solar fueled car?
I feel like these little solar powered cars in Tunisia would probably be great for somebody who lives out in the very sunny parts of Australia. Maybe as like a little running around car, but like, I don't know, it probably is a bit impractical until they get longer ranges, because out bush, you need to go pretty far. Like my mum has to drive an hour to get to the closest shops, and she lives out in the bush, right? So I think you would need to, increase the capacity for the solar charge.
If it's solar only,
yeah,
probably at this point they'll be like hybrids.
Hybrid maybe.
So like you get back home, you finish topping it up overnight with your home's electricity. And then, but during the day, you get a 50-kilometer extra range if it's a sunny day.
Yeah. No, I think it'd be very handy in a place like Australia where we get a lot of sunshine.
Yeah. There you go. Maybe these cars will come.
Maybe.
Look, I'm a big fan. I think that
it would be
solar
handy
energy
right now with the current fuel prices.
It would be very handy.
If only we had all this thought out beforehand. Eh?
That's right. Imagine if all like agricultural implements or trucks were already like fully electric. So imagine if we never even need to depend on fuel imports, petrols or anything anymore. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be so good.
But we're not there. We're not there yet, unfortunately. So we're coping up with the inflation that comes from that and the dependency of all that comes from that. But what I like about electric cars is that because so many homes in Australia are capable or have like electric, they can generate their own electricity with solar panels. I think that over a third of houses in Australia. I think Australia is the most house electrified country in the world.
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And look, that means that you can not only generate your own electricity, but in that case, your own fuel. And I think that when we decentralize things and we're not depending on big, massive, geopolitically, susceptible industries, the better.
Absolutely. I like it. All right. What have we got next?
Yes. I want to know if our radio friends that are listening to us today, if they would be driving a car that is, solar fueled. Let us know here, 0491 064 669, or what do you think about electric cars? Are you a lover? Are you a hater? Just want to know your opinion.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Now we're going to get a quiz answer.
Yeah, so the name, or the child that the Lord called out by name several times until the child replied, "Speak, for thy servant heareth," was Samuel.
Yep.
Samuel!
Samuel! You called me? No, I didn't.
I remember that story so well as a little kid hearing
Good old
that story.
Samuel.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Shells. So that was the answer to the quiz question, Samuel. Got a message from Vernon here. Hey, what are the disadvantages of electric vehicle cars? How much will it cost to replace the batteries? Look, that's a great question. It depends. I think the thing about electric cars, like you can just recycle batteries pretty much infinitely. Yes, it takes a lot of effort to create ones, and there's like rare earth minerals, but they're there. And if you know how to recycle them, you can recycle. Some people are talking about that you can once your battery is just like losing a lot of the charge, you can use it as a home battery. You can repurpose it for your home to use it as a home battery.
Okay.
But to replace the battery at the moment, last time I checked, is about $15,000, and you can replace and get a brand new battery installed.
How often would you need
But I
to
think
do
that in the United, once every 1.5 million kilometers or something.
Okay.
Yeah, that's usually what batteries
a
last.
long time.
Like maybe once every 10, 15 years, something like that. If you drive a lot.
$1,000 a year to set aside for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Round about that. But look, I do not know how. No cars have needed to be doing that so far. I don't think.
Yeah, we haven't made it that far in the history of EVs.
Yeah, I think that in the United States it's cheaper already. But there you go. There is some. Probably the rest of the car will die before the battery.
Wow.
So the batteries have come a long way. Now, not talking about batteries, but also want to talk about technology now.
Yes,
I want to talk about a bit of a love story, but a love story between a man and his dog.
And some AI.
Yes. So it is a bit of a story of love. There's desperation and then some cutting edge Aussie ingenuity. And the story is this. There's the Sydney tech guy refusing to let his beloved rescue dog die from cancer. So he teams up with ChatGPT to invent the world's first custom mRNA cancer vaccine for a dog. And it actually worked. So this is the story of Paul Cunningham and his dog Rosie. So it started in 2024 when Paul's 8-year-old dog, rescue dog Rosie, she's a Skafy Shar-Pei cross. He had adopted Rosie in 2019, just before COVID. She was diagnosed with this aggressive mast cell cancer. Wow. The vets said she only had a few months to live. Tumors were bursting through her skin. They were bleeding, swelling. She was absolutely miserable. So Paul had already spent thousands of dollars on chemotherapy, surgeries, immunotherapy. Nothing was working for Rosie. And she was fading fast. So, he was not ready to say goodbye yet because Rosie had been his best mate. She helped him through relational breakups, through business deals, through the COVID, lockdowns and crises, like everything life threw at him. Like Rosie was ever there to support him.
Wow.
Yes. So the problem is Paul had zero medical or biology background. He's an electrical engineer by trade, turned AI and machine learning expert with about 17 years of experience in the industry. So he turned to ChatGPT for ideas. And AI suggested him immunotherapy. They pointed him to the University of New South Wales Genomics Center. And the AI also helped him to map out a plan. So he went to the university. He paid about $3,000 to sequence Rosie's tumor DNA. So he sequenced both Rosie's DNA and the DNA of her tumor to see what are the mutations. And then he used this software that I only heard it for the first time, yesterday, called AlphaFold.
Okay.
You know what AlphaFold is? AlphaFold was a software created by Google. If you give the information about the kinds of protein that you're looking at, like what kind of amino acids, the weight, and so on, the software can design and draw the three-dimensional picture of that protein. Before, it used to take years for you to find out what is the exact structure of a protein. With this software, you just put in the data, boom, it draws it for you with super high accuracy.
Okay.
So this is the latest and greatest in terms of genetics research. So he used that app as well with Rosie's DNA, and then he spotted 7 key mutated proteins that her immune system could attack. So he crunched that data. It was over 150 billion letters of DNA with his data science skills, designed the vaccine blueprint himself, and then he convinced the University of New South Wales RNA Institute to manufacture the vaccine for him. It took 3 months of paperwork just for the ethics approval.
Yeah, of course.
And then he wrote a 100-page application himself. And the vaccine was rushed to a specialist vet in Brisbane, where Rosie got her first jab in December 2025. Plus a checkpoint inhibitor. So what was the results? The results are nothing short of miraculous. Within weeks, the tumors swelled, so that was a good sign, but then they melted away. One of her tumors in her legs was the size of a tennis ball. That one halved in size. Most other tumors, they either disappeared completely or they shrank dramatically. Her energy came roaring back. She's now chasing rabbits, sprinting at the dog park. Her coat is glossy. She's full of life again. It's not a complete cure yet. It's been about 7 weeks since her first jab.
Sure.
A couple of tumors did not respond, and Paul is already planning a second vaccine, but it did buy her some extra months of quality life.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That is so good. So it was a specific vaccine for this dog,
this genetics, this cancer DNA.
Cancer.
Yes.
Wow. So it's probably not applicable to most other creatures.
No, but
just this one, really.
It is opening up a new field where particularly for cancer vaccines, where you can have your cancer scanned and then seeing what's wrong with it. Where's the mutations?
Yeah,
and then you can teach your immune system to target those cells with those particular mutations to fight this cancer.
Yeah.
So Professor Paul Thorderson from the University of New South Wales, who made the vaccine, said that this is the first personalized cancer vaccine designed for a dog. And UNSW genomics expert associate professor Martin Smith said, if we can do this for a dog, why aren't we rolling it out to all humans with cancer?
Yeah.
And the vet that gave the shot says, it was like pretty much magical from what he has seen.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty interesting story, and I think this is a story of AI doing well.
Yeah.
Sometimes we talk about stories of AI going bad and used, but again, it's
a tool. It's
a tool. It's a tool. It can be used in positive ways, can be used in negative ways. Yeah. One of the things where AI shines is that it is able to go through billions and billions of data
in a moment,
in record time, and coordinate and make decisions or synthesize it. So I really believe in this human AI technology partnership. Now, I do believe that it's probably going to be used to oppress and persecute people. Like in North Korea, it's being used. Like Anthropic was worried that the United States was going to use to spy on its own people. So I'm not naive to believe that that's probably not going to happen. But when it's used at its best, it's really helping us to crunch huge amount of data and help us to make decisions based on that. So this is a story that is gaining the headlines from the world around. Everybody in the world is talking about Paul and Rosie and how like one person with absolutely no biomedics data could have access now to that information. But I also want to highlight like there's some really forward-thinking genetics researchers in the University of New South Wales that said, you know what, let's take this challenge. Let's help all these data become reality. So it's just a nice story.
Yeah.
Would you use that to save your dog?
Look, I would consider it.
Yeah.
I'd weigh it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Let us know what you think about that story, Radio Friend. 0491 064 669 is the number to text for that one. Do we get anything from our text line? I think that pretty much we read everything.
I think that's it for now.
That's right.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And now we're going to be listening to an interview. I had pre-recorded that interview with my friend Kasper Carstensen. He's from Denmark, and he's going to be sharing some really incredible stories of his testimony. So he used to be a trained chef and personal trainer, and he has some really incredible stories with God. I really hope that you will enjoy his testimony, his stories, and that his testimonies will bring you closer to God and more trusting in God. Let us know what you think about that interview after it ends. I would love to hear your feedback. And in today's show, I have the privilege and the honor to interview one of my friends from Denmark, my friend Kasper Carstensen. Thank you so much for joining us for today's show and for sharing a little bit of your journey with God today with us.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. I'm very excited to be here.
Very exciting. So, Kasper, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're wearing a special clothes today. It looks like you're wearing chef's clothes. Does it have anything to do with your profession?
Yeah, actually, I'm working at a culinary school in Sweden, run by the Adventist Church, in cooperation with the Adventist school there, and we have this amazing program where we train the next generation of chefs. And since we're doing 2 programs per year, 3 months, and then I have 3-month vacation, I decided to come visit some good friends of mine, you and your wife, who runs a food pharmacy. So I had the privilege of serving and helping out at food pharmacy in Newcastle for the last 2.5 months. It's been such a fun journey. It's been a big blessing to be part of the team and to see how people are being served in the community through something as a cafeteria, as a cafe ministry. So it's been a really fun journey.
Thanks for that. It's great to have you here on board with us for sure. And I want to know more about this background of yours as a professional chef and how that played out in your life and your testimony. But I also heard that you were a physical trainer. Is that also true?
Yeah, that was my first education after high school. I had a very big passion for sports and I loved strength training. So I decided to be a personal trainer. So I studied this for 1 year. And this is also where I got my passion for teaching. I realized that quite early on. So I've been working for the Danish Sport and Olympic Federation for about 4 years, training trainers and athletes, giving courses, and being part of an educational team. So that has been really fun. And that has helped me to both learn more about myself, but also about health and how to train others. So that has been like a big impact where I could see God was just preparing me for different adventures and different work in the future. So
that is very exciting. Well, working for the Olympic and professional athletes in Denmark, you must have met some pretty incredible people there and very high performance athletes, I would imagine. So, Casper, tell me a little bit about your Christian experience. So, have you always been a Christian? Did you grow up in a Christian home? Can you tell us a little bit about your background as far as your faith journey goes?
Yeah, so my parents became Christians when I was quite young. It started all with my older brother who came home from school. We had Christianity in Denmark. It's part of the normal classes. And he came home and he was like, had a lot of different questions. And my parents just looked at each other and were like, we would actually know this for ourselves. So they started to go to this non-denominational church. And one day they got a letter in the mailbox, and this was a Bible gift plan. And so they could sign up, and then they would get a free Bible. They would get Bible studies, and learning how to read and understand the Bible. So they were like, yeah, we really want to do this. So this really nice elderly Adventist pastor came to my parents' home. He visited us. He would give my parents a study, and he would always have this incredible, nice children's story for my older brother and I. So he became like a big part of our family. Me, my brother, were always looking forward for the next story he would tell us.
So how would he tell the stories? Is through books, or had presentations, or just like telling from his voice?
Yeah, just telling by his voice. So he was incredible in storytelling. So it was just like being there, and you could see like his passion, and he was like very sincere. You can tell when somebody's sincere, and he was definitely a sincere person.
That's very interesting. So you grew up in this Christian home, and how was it your faith growing up? Throughout your teenage years, throughout your young adulthood, did you hold on to that faith of your parents that was introduced to you by this elderly pastor, or did you ended up losing focus for a while?
Unfortunately, like a lot of young teenagers, I started to lose focus as well. I started to party, I started drinking, and that was where I started to fall astray, and I stopped going to church. And one day I had a falling out with my friends, and that led me to realize that I was going down a rabbit hole. I needed to have my life back in order again. And so I decided to go to the Adventist school as a part of the board. So I decided to go to the Adventist school there as a student, but also to live there, since it was also a boarding school. And this was where I got my faith again, and also where I started to have studies, and this is where I decided to be a Christian myself. So I had the Bible studies, and the following year I decided to be baptized.
Okay, so that happened at around your late teenage years, high school years. And how did that play out? Because you were getting into the world of Olympic athletes. You're getting to the world later on as a professional chef. How did your faith play out in those two things? Because there's a number of things, particularly as you mentioned, you were a Seventh-day Adventist. So there are things like the Sabbath, or for example, Seventh-day Adventists, they follow the Levitical instructions for nutrition in the book of the Bible as well. How do these two things kind of start to play a role into your life as you started to develop yourself professionally?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you for asking that, Joseph. To start with, after high school, I decided to. I was on a crossroad. I was considering either to study theology, to be a pastor, or to be a physiotherapist. But since I had this big interest in the human body and in sports, I decided to go down the role of being a physio. So to be able to do that, I needed to improve my grades, since my grade from high school wasn't the best. So I decided to do this elite course in strength training. And I came from this very strong faith environment, being at the Adventist school there, where all of a sudden I was the only Christian. I was the only Adventist there present. So I just asked the school to cater for my needs, since I didn't want to eat anything against the Levitical laws. So the school catered for that need, and that created a lot of curiosity about me, and I got some opportunities to share and to talk about my faith. But I also saw that my faith started to crumble, because what was normal there, unfortunately, was drinking and being by yourself and not having a strong identity in the Bible. I started to drink again, and I started to be more loose in certain areas. I still went to church, and I still had this as a priority, but I could see that I was allowing backsliding to be part of my life again.
Wow, and it is an amazing thing, because oftentimes we actually hear testimonies about getting away from the Lord for a while, but then coming back and, hey, I came back and I stayed. But what you're saying is that there's like a rebound where you had you're having a blossoming faith when you're young. Then that did not become a priority to you, and then finally it becomes a priority to you again. But later down the track, you saw that slowly slipping back into particularly the habit of drinking. So what happened in that, during those years that yes, you were still attending church, but at the same time, this relationship with Jesus was not your first priority anymore? What developed from there?
Well, afterwards, I was still trying to figure out what I should do. So I got accepted to the school to study to be a physiotherapist. And after half a year, I decided to end this course, because it was hard for me to catch up with all the studies. Later on, I learned that I was dyslexic. So this was why studying and learning, memorizing Latin and muscles and everything by heart was so difficult for me. And this was also what led me to an identical crisis. And I see now, as I reflect back on my life, because I wasn't rooted, because I didn't have this strong Christian identity that allowed me, or that led me to go back on certain temptations, and also why I was starting to backslide. So because I had this idea that you have to have an education, you have to be somebody, you have to have a job, otherwise in life you're a nobody. And now I was trying to figure out who am I, what can I do? And then later on I decided to study at culinary school, because I learned through work experience I was quite good at cooking. I had a natural talent for that. And as I went to culinary school, I got amazing grades, and I was lucky enough to find an apprenticeship. But because of my low self-esteem, this was where I started to compromise. I didn't go to church because I was going to work instead, and this was my priority. And I saw that my relationship with God became smaller and smaller, and I distanced myself. But when you are in the middle of it, you don't realize it yourself. You think, oh, I'm all good, everything is fine, this is normal. But it's just because you have this big delusion, because you have become so far away from God that you don't realize it yourself. And this became, unfortunately, my reality.
That is very interesting. And you mentioned here, so after this gradual falling backwards, this getting away, slipping from the hands of Jesus, you mentioned one word here that caught my attention a few times, which is the word identity. So what changed? What happened that made you say, you know what, I have to put Jesus in the first place again? And what were some of the decisions, perhaps difficult decisions you had to make so that you could get back into following the steps of Jesus?
Yeah, I had this incredible experience, and I believe God was pulling all the strings because he knew exactly what I needed and who could lead me to the right path again. And so my director at the restaurant, he wanted to give us all a very generous Christmas gift. He wanted to give us a trip to Iceland. We just had to pay a little bit ourselves, and he would take care of all the rest. So he got some donors, and he got some sponsors from people we would buy products from, because he wanted to increase the level of the restaurant where I worked. And so we had a very tight schedule. We're doing a lot of things, but on Sunday we didn't do anything. And so I have some very good friends at Iceland. They're at the same age as my parents. They used to study in Denmark, and then they went back to Iceland for work. And so they invited me to their home for breakfast. And after breakfast, the man there, he invited me out for some sightseeing. And I was like, yeah, because Iceland is such an incredible pearl of nature. And he showed me all the cool places where tourists usually don't know, because it's a bit more rural and you have to have a good, strong car to be able to go there. So he drew me to this incredible place. Just imagine you out at the ocean and you have these two massive rocks out there, and you have massive waves just throwing themselves at it. On top of there, about 10, 20 meters above, you have a lot of like small nests where you see puffins having their nests, and they would be like flying in, flying out, taking care of their little puffin babies. And we're just standing there for a little while. You have this landscape of black lava stones all around you. You had like a tiny geyser that's blowing off some steam.
Wow.
And so in that moment, he changed my life, literally. He asked me one question, and this one question, which I'm going to share now, changed my distortions. He asked me this very simple question: Kasper, isn't it difficult to keep the Sabbath when you are a chef? And that resonated with me. And so the Bible tells us that the Holy Spirit will bring conviction to our hearts, and that was what that question did to me. I became super embarrassed. People who know me like you do, I'm very quick at like commenting and giving like a punchline back, but here I was quiet as a lamb. Like I had no response. I was so heavily convicted.
And it was a very normal question.
It was,
wasn't it? He was saying, hey, how do you reconcile the two? But the hard thing was to admit to yourself, I'm not reconciling anything. I'm just not keeping this habit. It's not that it's hard. It is hard. That's why I'm not keeping it. But at the same time, it arose when you say, hey, but why am I not keeping it?
Yeah.
So the Holy Spirit really spoke to you and asking the same question to you back and say, hey, yes, Kasper, why?
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing about the Sabbath? You know, why are you putting me in the second place? So after that question, so do you think that question was the start of changing everything for you from that point?
Yeah, and the reason why was because he shared his testimony, he shared his experience with me. And I believe that as we share our testimonies with others, this is where we can see the fingerprint of God. We can see how he was leading, taking care of them. So he just looked at me like very gently. He could see that, yeah, he hit a spot. And so he just smiled and he started to share his experience with the Sabbath with me. And so they tried to have a child on their own for some years, but biology was against them. So they decided to adopt. But to be able to adopt a child in Iceland, you have to take a course, to get a certificate, to get the approval, to start the process. But this course is always on Sabbath in the weekends. And so they decided to pray about it, and they considered this to be work. And they were like, well, this is, if it's God's will, it's his plan. He'll be faithful. So they started to pray for this every single day. But no matter what they did, they just could not see a solution, a way out. They started to talk to different people. They had talk with the commune. They even had a chat with the mayor. In the end, they saw that they could take this course in Denmark, but guess which day this would be? Also on Saturdays. So they decided to talk about it again, and they were like, no, we will continue. We'll pray, and God will come through. If he wants us to be parents, he will make the blessing for us. So long story short, they ended up having a meeting 1-to-1 privately with the Minister of Justice in Iceland. After about 8 minutes into the meeting, he stood up. He opened his coat and he gave them an envelope. And Joseph, guess what was in this envelope?
What?
The certificate. He looked them straight into the eyes and said, you know what? If anybody is worthy to become parents, it's the two of you. He shook their hand and then he left out of the door.
Wow.
And then imagine like me back in Iceland, you have the puffins, you have the small little gator blowing off some steam, all the lava stones, and you have this nice man just super happy. You can see his smile is all the way up to his ears. He starts to cry tears of joy, of appreciation. And he said, Kasper, you know what? It takes about 2 years to get a kid when you have the papers in order. We got our boy within half a year. And so in that moment, in that very second, he said that I decided to leave the restaurant business, fine dining, as quick as I could. I wanted to end my contract as soon as possible, and I did, because I wanted to be authentic. I wanted to have this like Christian experience. I want to have the joy, the peace that he had, because I recognized with myself I didn't have that. I thought I did. I thought I was happy. I thought that I was living the dream because I worked in this very expensive, fancy restaurant. People would take out their phones. They would take nice picture of the food, the plates that I had done. And I took pride in that. It would literally give me a kick, like, oh yeah, I was like high-fiving myself. But everything became like nothing because I realized that I was empty inside. And the only place where I could go to be filled would be to receive the living water which only Christ can give.
Wow. That is amazing. So you ended up going ahead and quitting from your job and starting a new chapter with God where you would honor him in his Sabbath day that he commanded.
Yeah. And as I was just about to have my last exam at culinary school, my main instructor tapped me and another guy on the shoulder, and this was where the temptation came in. And it was like the devil was opening a door for me to grasp what I wanted, what I desired from my past. So we went into his office and he just looked at us and like, guys, I have this amazing opportunity for you. I just spoke literally 5 minutes ago with the best chef in Denmark. This guy, he's going to start a new fancy Michelin star restaurant where the headquarters of Lego is. He won the best chef in Denmark 2 years ago. You'll be learning everything from him. He's going to develop a new team, a new menu, everything from scratch. You'll be part of this amazing process. What do you say, guys? And the other one, my fellow classmate, he was just all excited. He was like jumping, almost like pulling off his hair of excitement. And like, oh man, amazing. Yes. And I was just very calm. I looked at my main instructor and I just said, thank you so much. I really appreciate the tap of on the shoulder, but I have to decline. And my instructor, he just looked at me like his jaw dropped and like, Kasper, do you know what you're saying no to? And like, yeah, I know exactly what I'm saying no to. Because I knew that if I would go back on the same bandwagon, I would lose my connection with God again. But this time I was more committed and I knew what I had to give up from my past. To be able to work at this level, I did. You have to work more than 200 hours a month, super concentrated, super busy. I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of things with myself because of long work hours. You gain a lot of weight. I was very unhealthy, drinking a lot of caffeine just to keep it up because the pressure was so high. And you have this high need of drinking something like alcohol or other stimulants that will make you fall asleep. This is why so many chefs out there, they drink, they smoke weed, because this helps them to calm down so they can get like maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep, because the adrenaline, the caffeine, everything is just pumping in them. So I knew exactly what I was saying no to, but I also recognized that I would compromise my faith, and this time my identity in Christ was stronger, and I was out for an adventure with God, and I was starting to allow Him to direct my journey, my life, instead of me being in the front seat.
Wow. Casper, what an amazing testimony of how God was faithful to your life and how you responded to His faithfulness with a response of faithfulness from your part as well. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. I will have to have you again here on the show with us so you can tell us some of your other amazing stories of what God has done into your life. But for today, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to have you again next time with us.
Thank you.
Let us know, what do you think about that interview with Casper? Text us here to 0491 064 669. And we have a giveaway today. It's a book called Help, I Have Been Blessed. How to Stop God's Blessings from Becoming Curses. So if you feel that your life is blessed today, you need that book. If you think that you have more than enough for your life, you need that book. This book is going to help, it's going to track one man's journey into becoming wealthy, into realizing, hey, how can I make sure that my wealth does not jeopardize my walk with Christ? But, wealth is something that is it can be relatively subjective. Lindsay, I've met like some extremely wealthy people that didn't consider themselves to be wealthy.
Okay.
And I have met very humble people that consider themselves to be very wealthy. Wealth is it's basically like you think that you have more than you have enough. And if that's the case, we are all getting into the risk of, mistaking the blessings for the blesser. So if you want this book, text us here, #help to 0491 064 669.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.